Aoife from Friendly Dead Laughing, and I am here with my weekly wrap up. I had a great week of reading, though some of the books did end up being more of a 3 stars, but I did get a lot read this week, so I am going to talk about them all now. And the first book I finished was The Plague Stones by James Brogden. This is a thriller horror book that I received in exchange for an honest review from Titan Books, and this is basically about this village in England, and it has basically been haunted by this very malevolent ghost of this girl who died during the Black Plague. And we are following this family who, they are called the Fenans, and they basically take up, the mother of this family takes up this post that was once held, I think, by her great aunt or her great great aunt, and is basically going to become one of the trustees of this village. And a while after they move there, and they all have all these kind of really strange and dangerous interactions with this girl, who obviously they don't at first believe that she is a ghost, but they soon come to realise that they are basically in a lot of danger from this ghost, because as soon as they became one of the trustees of this village, they are kind of people who she wants to get revenge on, and we're going back and forth in this book between the present day and all the weird and horrible things that they are seeing and that the ghost is trying to do to them. Then we were also going way back to during the Black Plague, when this ghost was alive, and we were finding out what happened to her and what basically has caused her anger. I don't read a whole lot of horrors, but it is a genre that I kind of wanted to get more into, because I do find them quite addictive and quite, you know, they are quite fun to read, even though they are a little bit scary. This one wasn't, I don't think, terribly scary. There's a little bit of gore in it, and there's some stuff near the end that is kind of quite a little bit stomach turning, but I don't think in terms of like the violence or the gore factor, I don't think it was terrible. There's a lot of things around like rats and stuff in this book as well, so if you're not like a big rat fan or a mouse fan, that could kind of get to you as well in this book. I actually think whoever, like, while the cover of this is fine, I actually think whoever did the cover made a mistake by putting a crow on it. I feel like it should be a rat. I did really enjoy this. I like, there's some kind of cliches that like, you know, I could kind of see coming, but at the same time I did really enjoy it. It definitely kind of kept me on the edge of my seat. I stayed up pretty late on Sunday night to finish this, because I kind of wanted to finish the story. I didn't want to go to bed kind of trying to figure out what was going to happen and what she would do next to people. I wanted to just have it all finished and, you know, out of my mind. So yeah, there is a little bit of like horror in it, so I did quite enjoy that. And I had forgotten that when I had received this book from Titan, I had gotten this like really creepy postcard. I don't know if you can see that, but it's basically of the ghost, and when I was starting to read this fell out between the pages, and it scared me so much. So yeah, this definitely gave me kind of the creepy feelings I wanted for one of my first reads of October. So yeah, that was a really good decision on my part, and I quite enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. One I think horror newbies would enjoy as well. The next book I finished was an audiobook I had been reading for most of the week before, and I just had maybe, I think, about an hour or two left, and I finished that on Monday. That was The Stranger Upstairs by Melanie Raabe. This is a kind of domestic thriller about this woman called, I think her name is Sarah, and she basically 7 years ago, her husband went on a flight to South America for a business trip, completely disappeared. No one ever heard of him again. They thought he'd gotten kidnapped, and she's been living for 7 years kind of in this limbo, not really knowing if he would ever return. And she's kind of finally decided that enough is enough. Her and her son are going to have to kind of move on with their lives and really accept that her husband and the dad is never coming back. And then as she's kind of obviously deciding to do that, she gets a call to say that her husband has been found and he's coming home to her. So she's very nervous, obviously very excited, really happy about it. And then when she goes to pick him up at the airport, she's like, this man is not my husband. I don't know who this man is. And this man is very quickly, there's like a threatening presence around him. There's like this promise of violence with him, and he keeps telling Sarah he knows what she's done, he knows her secrets, and it's really getting to her. And it's one of the reasons why she isn't like calling the police to say there's like a stranger in my house, and we see the story kind of unravel from there. As an audiobook, this was really, really good. I really enjoyed the audiobook. It was narrated by someone called Kristen Atherton. Really enjoyed her narration, and would definitely pick up other books I in the future that will be narrated by her. I just really enjoyed her. The first half of this book was really, really good. It was so like intense and fast-paced. The whole book is fast-paced, but the first half in particular is really fast-paced, and I just really enjoyed this really good build-up of like what the hell's going on, who this person is, what does he want, what does he think he knows about Sarah and her past. I will say for me, I actually got really unsettled by the kind of violence around the male character in this, around the stranger, and the hatred he seemed to have for Sarah. And it was actually quite hard to listen to at times, because we were getting some like really brief chapters in his point of view, and just the way he acted around her, and it was quite scary, just like this big man, and how much he seemed to hate her and how much he seemed to want to hurt her, and it was quite scary for me to read. But I will say the second half of this book kind of really flopped for me. It wasn't great. Some of the explanations were a little bit like implausible and were just a bit silly. So the second half was really, really disappointing, but the first half was really good. So it did end up disappointing me. It kind of went from what I thought it was going to be a really good 4-star read, and ended up being kind of a low 3-star read for me. Next book I received from Joe Fletcher Books in exchange for an honest review. That is Brightfall by Jamie Lee Moyer. This is kind of a follow on from Robin Hood, and we are following I think it's around 12 years later, or like, yeah, around 12 years later, and we are following Maid Marian, who is now the mother of twins. Obviously they are Robin Hoods, but we find out that Robin Hood, when she was pregnant, like upped and left her and like went to a monastery and has become like even super duper pious, is obviously like really into religion and seems to want to become like a monk himself, has like annulled his marriage with Maid Marian even though they had these children, and has never really seen the kids, has nothing to do with them, and yeah, so this book kind of starts when Marian has finds out that a bunch of their old friends have died, including Robin Hood's brother Will Scarlet, who Marian had kind of had a romantic relationship in the years following Robin leaving her, and there's kind of this, they think that there's something else going on because all these people are dying in these really mysterious circumstances, but there's no real cause for their death, and Marian, they kind of think that there could be kind of some magic in it, there could be something to do with the Fae, because the Fae and magic are a big thing in this book, and Marian has kind of, she's like a hedge witch, so she's able to kind of call upon the Fae, she's able to see the Fae, she has the sight, and she's able to do kind of small little spells and stuff, and like healing and things like that. As a book about Maid Marian, I really, really enjoyed this. I think Maid Marian is a really interesting character. I feel like she could always be done in like so many different ways. She can be like a really cool warrior. She can be like a witch in this book, really cool and powerful in her own way. And then she can also be like this damsel in distress. And I think it's always really interesting to see how people do their own take on Maid Marian, and I think she's just a character with so much potential, and I really enjoyed how she was portrayed in this book. It was really, really interesting. The way the Fae are written in this book is really, really good. The nature in this book is beautiful. Some of the description in this are just really, really stunning. I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, the book itself is stunning, as you can see. The only thing I felt really angry about with this book is Robin Hood, and I was kind of trying to figure it out why I was so annoyed at the portrayal of Robin Hood. He's just a horrible person in this. The way he speaks to Marian is disgusting. The way he speaks about women in the book are horrible. Just everything about him, just every time he opened his mouth in this book, I was just so angry. I hated him so much, and I was trying to figure out why it hurt me so much that Robin Hood was being portrayed in this way. And I realised it's because from my childhood, Robin Hood has always been a massive part of me growing up, and a character in fiction that I absolutely loved. Whether it was like Disney's Robin Hood, I mean, we all had a crush on that fox, and if you didn't, you're a big liar. Robin Hood and Disney, then like the Kevin Costner Robin Hood, and there was like the BBC series of Robin Hood, which myself and my family loved. We always sat down and watched that, I think every Saturday or Sunday whenever it was on. We all loved it. So Robin Hood is a thing in like my family that we always really, really loved. We loved the tales of Robin Hood. My dad used to tell me bedtime stories about Robin Hood. So Robin Hood is really, really personal to me, and to see him bastardized in this book, to put it lightly, was so hurtful, and I hated it. And I was like, this is not my Robin. Robin Hood would not be like this. I don't care. Like, I know, you know, an author can do what they want, but I was just so angry at how he was portrayed in this book, and I feel like we didn't really get a good, I don't know, it wasn't really we never really got any peace with his character, I don't think. There wasn't really any reconciliation, or as much as I wanted anyway. He never really changed that much by the end of it, and yeah, that really upset me. But for everything else, for Maid Marian's story, for the story itself, the mystery of the murders, the introduction of the Fae in the book, everything of that was really, really good. But because of Robin Hood, and because that kind of did definitely dim my pleasure in reading this book, I gave it a 3 3 to a 3.5 stars. It was originally going to be 3.5 to 4 stars, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, no, it's more of a 3 to a 3.5 stars because of the Robin Hood thing. So yeah. Next book I read was also a bit of a disappointment for me. That was The Deathless Girls by Kiran, Millwood, Hargrave. This is supposed to be a kind of backstory of the brides of Dracula. We are following twin girls, Kizzy and Lily. They are from kind of a Romany tribe in this world. It seems to be more of a fantastical world they are in, but it seems like they call themselves travellers, and it seems to be more of like kind of a Romany culture, and they are basically their whole family are killed and they are captured and they're brought to this castle, and they are being promised that they are going to be become serving girls to this kind of, to the leader of this kind of like part of the land, and that there is this person called the dragon who's obviously Dracula, and they could also be given to him as well. Being threatened a lot about this. We are kind of following how these girls end up, they do become the brides of Dracula, because there is a line in Dracula about his brides where there's 2 dark and 1 fair, and we are figuring out how that kind of comes about. This book had so much potential, but it was just so disappointing for me because I just felt like it was too vague, it was too short. Dracula only like appeared like 80% into the book. He only appeared in 1 scene. A majority of the book was set in the first castle that they went to as kind of slaves / serving girls. And while that was good, it kind of built up the story. I feel like that there was so much in that section, and then they went to their journey to Dracula's castle, and then everything like was like within like 20% it was all like finished up, and I was like, okay, but like if you're giving me a book about like Dracula's brides, I want a lot of Dracula in it as well. I want vampires, and like vampires didn't even come into it until like about 70%, and it was just like, for a book that's supposed to be kind of about vampires, there was like no vampires in it, or there was very, very little, and they weren't that scary either. There is a girl romance in this, which is great to see. For myself, I felt like the romance kind of came out of like nowhere, and it was kind of rushed and quick, and like most of this book, as I said, like it seems to be like there's so much, like the first like 60 to 70% of this book is such a slow build up, and then the last little bit is so fast, and that's what really kind of spoiled the book for me. I feel like this could be so much longer. There could have been so much about when they actually met Dracula and became the brides of Dracula. There could have been so much interesting things to do with that, and then it did the really, really lazy thing with an epilogue where it was like, then the character was like, and then we did this and this, and then we did that and that and that, and I was like, why put that in the epilogue and not put it in the book? Like, I just feel like that's a really lazy thing for an author to do, to suddenly be like, and then this and this and this happened. Like, don't tell me that in 1 page. Like, I want that to be described in the book as well. Like, it's just, yeah. So I gave this a low 3 stars. I think there's parts of this book that are really beautiful. The sisterly relationship is really nice. The characters don't have that much personality, to be honest. They are a little bit like cardboard. So yeah, that's what happened. And then I have just finished Abhorsen by Garth Nix. This is the last book in the Abhorsen trilogy, though I do know there are 2 kind of spin-off follow-up books to this. This was fine. This is about like kind of a world where there is magic in one part of the world, there's no magic in another part of the world, and we are generally following this person who's called the Abhorsen, which is kind of like a necromancer, and they're able to kind of banish spirits and do really cool magic and stuff like that. I read Lyriel a while ago, and that was fine. It was very long, it was a bit slow. This one was a little bit better. I just think there's nothing wrong with the story in this, there's nothing wrong with the writing. I just think I'm not a massive fan of Garth Nix's writing, or I'm not a fan of this. Like, I'm not a huge fan. I like it, but I don't love it. I'm not a huge fan of this world, and I think the magic is really cool, and I do like the characters, but there's just nothing in it that like really thrills me, or like really, I was kind of reading it just because I had the book on my shelf and I was like, I might as well just finish the trilogy. I wasn't reading it because I was like dying to know what happened next. Like, would have been fine if I'd never read this book, but I just happened to have it, so I was like, I'll just pick it up. So it was fine. My favourite character in this is definitely Mogget, who's kind of a cat / demon with a lot of secrets, and I really enjoyed kind of learning more about Mogget in this book, and you never really know whether like what he's doing, if he's doing something for good or for something for evil, and I really enjoyed that about him. So yeah, this was fine. I think I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 4 stars, or 3.5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, it was fine. I liked it for what it was, but as I said, there's nothing about this kind of series that really thrills me or excites me in any way. Sabriel was probably definitely my favourite of the trilogy, and I don't really know if I'll read Clariel and Golden Hand, which are the books that come after it. If you've read them, let me know what you think, if I should read them, but I think I'd be fine if I never did. So that's everything I've read this week. Please let me know what you guys think down below as always, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.